5. What you waiting for? All right, so we should actually be live. I'm going to be honest with you guys. If you're watching this, whether you're watching it live or in um, video on demand, it may be a very short one depending on who all is here. I've been working on this classwork for school, and it's driving me insane, and I figured, what the heck? I might as well try a live stream with you guys, see who's around at this time, and see if there's actually see if there's actually people who would come on and hang out this late. To JJMFDL's point, it is late, which is one of the reasons why I am actually doing this, to see if you guys would be interested at any point. What's going on, JJMFMDL? JJMFDL. You can tell I'm a little tired. Charles Ryan Lee. What you going to school for? I am actually in digital cinematography. I think I've talked about that before. I go to Full Sail University, good friend. What's going on, Justice Ag? Yeah, this is probably pretty late for you guys. Let me know if this is a time you would not prefer. Charles Stromville, burning the pre-midnight oil a little bit. Good to see you as well. Jeff Fralin. Everybody, J.R. Chadwick is here. It is almost 6 a.m. for Peter Grunnick. Yeah, I said it just a minute ago. You guys are coming. You guys are coming on. I am trying it this time just to see who shows up and just to see how popular it is. If not, I'll do it on my normal times, either early in the morning Central Standard Time or in the evenings Central Standard Time. Generally, I'm asleep by this time. Been a long time since we had a proper controversial topic, and I'm going to miss it. 5 a.m. here. Well, I mean, if not a lot of people show up, then we probably won't be doing that. Well, I'll redo this at a later time. I may just actually unlist this one. 6 a.m. at Continuum Trek. But yeah, this time is really good for Europe and stuff. It just, I don't think a ton of people are used to me being here European time. So I'm in Central Standard, Chickinator X. Yep, Central Standard. You know, I thought it might be interesting to have a discussion about the Vidians and how the Vidians work and what they do. I gotta be honest, the Vidians are probably one of the worst or most horrific. By the way, guys, just to show you my work, what I've been working on, I gotta make this picture look good. It doesn't look good to me. It's supposed to be a close-up shot. So I'm gonna have to work on that later. But anyway, so talking about the Vidians, the Vidians, for those who don't know, have been hit by the phage, or at least they were partially hit by the phage, and or at least, and at the beginning they were hit by the phage. Let me say that, and it completely destroyed their society. They used to be society based on art, on culture and things. But now to survive, for their society to survive, they literally have to go and steal the organs from other species. And it's ironic. The first time I ever saw Voyager's Deadlock, it made me feel uncomfortable. It made me feel weird, and I was younger at that point. The when I rewatched it, it was almost similar. The Vidians are, for me, one of the most horrific and scary species, and I'm not sure why. And yeah, Charles Ryan Lee, I know we have black market organ stealing now. We don't have an entire species dedicated to it. Brandon Belsky, still, you mean kill? Well, it depends on what they decide to do. In theory, they have stolen organs and kept people alive. People have been able to stay alive. Though generally it's a horrific life that they live. And what is even worse is that the way they do it is just, they do it while you're still alive, and sometimes you'll be awake and sometimes you won't, and they use a type of transporter technology that just takes it directly out of your body. For me, that is one of the most horrific things you can do. But, to that point, can we really blame them? Vidians have a point for survival, but it would be more logical to ask for help. With no true galactic superpowers providing stability to the region, it makes asking for help immensely hard. Yeah, JJMFDL, that's one of the interesting things. The conversation they had with the Delta Quadrant, or the issues they had in the Delta Quadrant, is that with no stabilizing force like the Federation, then you either had one of a few things. You either had multiple smaller empires, smaller organizations, not organizations, but governments that really weren't big enough to help out necessarily, or big enough to really do anything that would be impactful. Or you had, like the Borg, one species that just decided to take over and expanded like crazy. And the Borg weren't even the only ones we saw. They're the most well-known and the most powerful. But there were other governments, other empires that existed. The Crinum, I think, would be an example of an empire that existed. Regional powers is a good way of putting it. Jekinator X, yes. J.R. Chadwick, what do they beam into the empty cavity to prevent their abdomen from collapsing from the vacuum? I'd assume air. I don't think they're as worried about that, though. They cured that disease using Klingon DNA. I'm not convinced that they cured that disease using Klingon DNA. I do know that, depending on if you want to believe I forget who they were. Not the Triumvirate. Who were they? The Brain Trust or whatever? That they cured it, but they do pretty much still and kill, so I have no empathy for them. I don't think they should be allowed to do what they do for obvious reasons. But you ask the question, do they have justification? Do they is it understandable? And I lean towards that it is, to a degree, understandable. I lean towards... By the way, the $2... I don't know if I said that. I'm a little tired. I apologize. J.R. Chadwick is here. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. It's how I keep the lights on. Sorry if I missed that. But I don't know. I don't know. I'm surprised the Vidians haven't just conquered a race and used them as a source of organs. That's a good point. That could have been an interesting storyline. One of the problems with, and I say this, so during the time when they were making Voyager, you more wanted to make a series that anyone could just plug and play and not necessarily have to watch from the beginning. It was very much continuity is great, but we're not going to stick to it. We need to get as many episodes out and as someone can just start watching. So the fact that they didn't do it is understandable for the time and what they were trying to do. That said, it would have been really interesting to explore a species that is like that. So one of the ideas you could have done, to your point, is to have the Vidians have slave races. So not only do they go out and get ships or whatever, but they conquer entire planets that can't defend themselves and then use them as cattle. Specifically species that maybe would have had have more resistance to the phage. Kind of an interesting idea. They could have done that. I don't know. If you believe survival of the fittest and the Vidians are doing what they need to survive, even though it's morally wrong, I don't think it relies on survival of the fittest. Survival of the fittest is widely misunderstood, and I don't know a lot of people who believe survival of the fittest is at any point a good way to live your life. Nor is it really necessarily connected to any kind of philosophy or any kind of science backing. It's been misused horrifically. Justice Ag, the Doctor could have saved the Vidians if he downloaded their minds into holograms and reverse engineered mobile emitters. Yeah, well, that's one way to do it, I guess. Could have also saved if he killed every one of them. Scrub Lord, it means, you mean like harvesting cattle? Yeah, exactly. So if they kept them and had them like cattle, but unlike cattle, they weren't delicious. They were actually sentient beings that didn't have it coming. So, they're different in cattle in that they don't have it coming. Vidians seem better handled species-wise than the Borg were in Voyager. The Borg at the beginning weren't that bad, but they did turn them into like a villain of the week. And I think they relied too hard on it. I really do. I think the fact that no major factions arose was because the Borg knocked down any alliance or power that was rising. Not necessarily true. There was, in fact, I forget what it was, but there was a barrier that prevented the Borg from expanding in all directions and such. Also, I think the Borg kept themselves in line and only expand. I think they picked and chose where they expanded. I don't know that they necessarily cared. I mean, you could try to make that argument, maybe. Maybe that's why they're so focused on the Federation. But then why wouldn't they go after the Dominion? Maybe they did, but if the Dominion can defeat them, I think that's a question. That's a conversation or a story worthy of looking into, I just found out Riker was to join the Q Continuum, and he rejected it. He rejected being a god. Why? What's your thoughts on it? I haven't seen that episode in, forever. I forget why he specifically rejected it. I don't know that being a god is a good idea, though. I don't know that I would want to be a god. I'm not saying I would turn it down necessarily, but being a god doesn't seem like the best thing on the face of the planet, So I forget why he turned it down, though. For those who watched it when he became Q, do you remember what happened? There's a barrier around the center of the galaxy and at the end of the galaxy. According to a Star Trek movie, yeah, I think they even bring it up in the original series. That has largely not been explored, though. I don't believe since then. I think they hope that people just don't think about that, honestly. But according to a movie and in the original series, there was a barrier that was at least in the middle. I don't know about surrounding. One Starfleet cruiser fights a tactical cube, and the cruiser isn't destroyed after many direct hits. What Starfleet cruiser took on a tactical cube? Are you talking about Voyager? If you're talking about Voyager, J.R. Chatwick, and we're referring back, we're going back to that writing. I agree that the writing is pretty bad. I agree that there are same things that seem inconsistent or wrong. That said, Voyager, to a degree, had been... So here's the thing to consider about the Borg, too. The Borg and the Delta Quadrant exist, and they're a thing that the species are aware of. So naturally, individual species would come up with ways to combat the Borg. Maybe not completely, maybe not 100%. But as Voyager went through the Delta Quadrant, they got Borg technology. They advanced the ship to its as much as it could technologically from a 31st century perspective, or 29th century, however old that Borg was. And this was before they took on the tactical cube. So the ship, Voyager itself, was more advanced than any other Intrepid class the universe had ever seen. So Voyager taking on the tactical cube does feel like it's stretching it, but when you consider again that it had been advanced to the 29th or 31st century, they had met other species that also advanced the ship, it may be a little more powerful than what you would expect, and maybe could take a couple of hits. I'm not trying to defend how stupid that is. I'm just trying to say that there is some explanation for it. I always thought the reason that the Borg went after Feds was because of the numbers of cultures contained within. Imagine the Fed being a favorite ice cream with all your favorite mixings. Could be. There's a couple of reasons why they might want to go after the Federation. Destabilization, a great... taking over Earth and making Earth basically Another, oh, what the hell was it called? Unimatrix. So Unimatrix 02 or whatever the hell the number would be. Isn't necessarily a horrible idea. Additionally, you have all of the technologies and the secrets that would be on Earth that would help with perfection. So, along with the fact that, you have all of the different species. So, I think there's a lot. I think the tactical cube makes sense after the Borg losses after the 8472. I want to say they had tactical cubes before that. I think tactical cubes can. I actually don't have an issue with tactical cubes. I think tactical. Oh, Unimatrix 0. Okay, then it could have been a Unimatrix 1 or whatever. You know what I'm saying. I think that the Borg would have different kinds of ships for different points. So you would have an assimilation ship, which was just the Borg cube. And then if there was a fight, if there was something that was serious, maybe have a tactical cube. I don't think that's outside of how they would work or operate, especially in their own space. While Kabbalah used their rebirth to alter a species' original genetic makeup into new species, so basically stealing... I don't know what that's from. At Jan, tell your friends so Laura will do this more. What are we talking? What first stream I caught from this channel? Well, I'm glad you enjoy it, Jan. Always here to make it fun. Yeah, I am doing it this late at night to see who comes. Depending on the response, I may or may not do it this late at night for you guys who it's easier for you to make. I'm not sure because I get pretty tired. That said, 54 people watching, only 15 likes. Hit that like button. JR Chadwick, again, helping out the channel, guys. You don't understand how much Super Chats and Patreon and being a member. You can actually join and be a member, get all the advantages that you get on Patreon, how much it helps. And, of course, just viewing, just watching, hitting that like button. You guys don't understand. It is so infinitely helpful. Have you considered doing a vid on Star Trek, the animated series? I cannot stand the animated series. I got to be honest with you. I hate it. I don't want to say I hate it. I just don't like it. I talked about this before. I'm not suffering from insomnia. I'm suffering from stress from not knowing how to do this class that I'm going to fail. This is actually the picture I took, and the lighting is all off for what they wanted me to do. I don't know. I'm going to have to talk to the teacher tomorrow. C'est la vie. That was a picture I took for I'm a film student. The Borg should have never had a queen. That I agree with. The queen was absolutely stupid. It was required. A mortal super being, that's one of the reasons I was doing it, because it's England, it's good. The Queen was actually a movie requirement produced from executives within Paramount because they didn't think that audiences would be able to connect with just the Borg. You needed a specific enemy. And so, you needed a specific enemy to take on. And that was kind of their idea, So, I don't know where to go with that. Is he live too? He comes on this late? Why would he be on this late? Okay, well, tell him I said hi. Whoa. J.R. Chadwick, I'm so glad I'm done with school. I was done with school too. I actually have an associate's and even a bachelor's, but I kind of wanted to do other things. And so there's that. Is that in the Enterprise from Micro Machines or Star Trek Attack Wing? And I don't like the Queen myself. It's from Eagle Moss. Rod B. Rules says, I don't know. I liked how all Borg ships were the same as a part of their idea of being one. That being said, I love the Borg sphere. Who doesn't love the Borg sphere? To be fair. No, I'm not in England, Immortal. I just know that this is better times for England. The animated series was referenced on Star Trek Discovery when that insufferable one-episode science officer mentioned that his academy roommate was half Cation. The Cations were a cat-like species from TAS. I know, I've watched the animated series a couple of times. Just because I don't like it doesn't mean I don't watch it. I believe Cations were also mentioned otherwise. That wasn't the only reference to the animated series, to the animated series from Star Trek Discovery. Star Trek Discovery had several references to the animated series. In fact, the animated series was considered not canon because Gene Roddenberry didn't want it canon until Star Trek Discovery came along, and then we decided we're going to make it canon because screw Gene Roddenberry, he's dead, right? The Queen was a mistake. How do you think her actress did portraying her? Since she was a mistake, I can't really speak. Her actress acted fine. The Queen just doesn't make any sense, and it's inconsistent. So the portrayal of her is horrible. Her acting was fine, though, I guess. I have nostalgia for TAS because it was once the only Trek at the time. It was even a rerun on early Nickelodeon. I'll never remember seeing it on Nickelodeon. Of course, that may have been before my time. It could be that Borg become obsessed with humanity because they found an adversary or equal. They act differently towards humans than any other species. Humans are not equal to the Borg, though. That's the problem. I think I have a theory that some people don't necessarily subscribe to, but when you look at it, consider this. Q gets into an argument. Okay, so we know... What's up, Nate Watson? We know that the Borg have been scouting out... let me answer this first. Are Eagle Moss miniatures simply re-released Micro Machine ships, or are they something better? I like them. I think they're better quality. They're not re-released Micro Machines. So, we know the Borg were aware of humanity, that they had been scouting them out before the Enterprise... before the Enterprise D interacted with the Borg cube. We also know that they were aware of the different types of systems, including their engines and such, how fast they could travel. So a Borg cube is sitting around minding its own business. It knows about Starfleet, and it knows about Starfleet's capabilities. And then all of a sudden, the Enterprise D appears out of nowhere to the Borg cube. It appears in a place that the systems could not have made it. There's no way warp would have gotten there that fast. So they go to research to see what the hell is going on. The Borg cube scans the Enterprise, notes that the Enterprise, for whatever reason, is still there, and yet it's engine systems, because they go to engineering, remember. So they're probably scanning the engines. And they see that the engines, they haven't advanced. There's no way that it's moving that fast. So it still doesn't make any sense why the Enterprise D is there. Then during the combat, for whatever reason, the Enterprise D just disappears again and just goes back to the Alpha Quadrant. So now we have a really interesting mystery for the Borg. How did the Enterprise D get there? Why was it there? And what caused it to get there so quickly? So they send a cube to investigate. And the cube comes upon the Enterprise and it assimilates Picard. After it assimilates Picard, they find out the knowledge about Q, that the ship actually didn't do it on its own, that there is another entity, a more powerful entity, known as the Q. And so perhaps they want to assimilate Earth in order to better understand the Q and interact with the Q, since the Q have a very keen interest in humanity. Why is it the Borg send 4 ships to a minor planet to assimilate them in Dark Frontier, but only one at a time at Earth? Because Dark Frontier can do all kinds of... Dark Frontier was closer, I'd imagine. The ship was closer. Yeah, and so the farming theory has been there for a while too, and this is another one that people think. The farming theory is that the Borg are interested in technology, interested in advancing, and they can't do it on their own. We know this through several... Well, it's inconsistent because it's Voyager, but a lot of the episodes show that they can't really investigate on their own, or they're not supposed to be able to. So what they do is they send in one Borg cube to mess with the Federation, assimilate some ships, get their technology. The Federation goes crazy, builds all kinds of new technology, advances far beyond what it did beforehand, send another cube, assimilate the technology, get that, rinse and repeat. That is that has holes in it, but it is one of the only reasonable explanations for why the Borg only send one cube. That said, the only other explanation I have for it that I think is logical is that the Borg aren't like humans, and they aren't like really anything we've seen before. They're computers. And so as computers, everything is ultimately a math equation. How many Borg cubes should it take to assimilate Earth? Really, the Alpha Quadrant itself. 1. So how many do they send? 1. Now, everything has a percentage chance to it, so if that 1 fails, that was just a part of the percentage chance. Send another 1. I understand that Dark Frontier seems to try to counter that, but I you know. Jose Carolales does not understand the channel. That is so sad, buddy. So sad. What's going on, sci-fi guy? Hope you are doing well, good sir. Sci-fi guy sound familiar. Sci-fi guy. I don't know. That name sounds familiar for some reason. Ba-ba-da. The Borg versus the Shadows. Probably the Shadows. Oh, by the way, hi everyone. It's my first time in chat. Well, welcome, good buddy. I'm getting tired, so I probably won't last much longer. You could argue Cisco is no better than the Borg going after the Maquis, trying to assimilate them back in the Federation. I would argue that Cisco is worse than the Borg because he wanted to punish or kill them, not assimilate them. Why didn't the Q just destroy the Borg? In Q2, Q tells his son not to provoke them. Why? Do they fear the Borg may assimilate a Q? There has been a lot of breadcrumbs that were dropped to make it look like the Q feared the Borg. Here's another theory that I've done. It's actually in one of my videos. You know, and again, it's just because the writing is so vague on the Borg, which is what makes them more interesting that we can go through this. And hear me out. Oh, I'm going to sleep. Hear me out here. The Q were using humanity to fight a proxy war with the Borg. Because they were concerned that they wouldn't be able to win. And this is why. The Borg, for whatever reason, either were aware of the Q or just by happenstance decided to assimilate and destroy all of... who was Whoopi Goldberg? Star Trek. She played... Who the hell does she play? Guinan. Guinan was an Elorian. That's it. Man, I'm tired. I should know that. So, the Borg assimilate and destroy. Really, it more looks like destroy the Elorians. Just completely wipe them off the map. We would assume that there would be some assimilation in that. The Elorians have a way to fight and harm or defeat the Q. We see Q gets upset when he sees Guinan, and Guinan goes into an attack mode like she'd be able to harm him or at least defend against him. And so the Q, after realizing that the Elorians had been assimilated, or at least some of them had been assimilated, and that the Borg may have a way of attacking the Q, then use humanity to fight a proxy war, which ultimately results in Janeway destroying them. I have a ton of Borg theories. I just noticed that. Nate Watson helping out the channel. Thank you so much. Every little bit helps. My theory is the Queen is consistent with the Borg as described. Specialized drones, the medical repair, and primary processors exist. There is bound to be a few handling large-scale tactics like Mu Cube here. I disagree. In TNG, holistically, The Borg always moved as one. They were one mind. They made decisions. It was basically interacting with one entity. The Queen is quite literally a separate entity from the collective. She talks, she gives commands to them, she talks independent of them, and she has experiences that they don't. In my opinion, the Queen breaks the Borg from what we see in TNG in every stripe. The only argument you have for that, in my opinion at least, is that the Borg continue to assimilate, and as they assimilate, the distinctiveness of others become their own. So there may have been some assimilations that didn't go the way they intended it to. And again, by the way, thank you so much, guys. For those who don't know, it's how I keep the lights on, so I really appreciate support. And that's why I have the little counter down here, because that's what I need. And just so you guys know, once I hit the daily counter, past that, all that money is going to go into me doing movie reviews. Specifically Trek movie breakdown reviews. Knowing what Q is, do you really want to call on him for help? I think Q ultimately was in their corner. I don't know. Jose Corrales, what did I say? I was giving you a hard time, buddy. I forget what you said, though. Oh, you said it was written by humans, and so humans did it. I had another guy who was I don't know if he was having a go or anything like that, but he was talking about it's just in there. I get a lot of people who are like, it's just a show. You look too much into it. I wasn't being too. I wasn't meaning to be too mean. I'm sorry if I came off that way. What if the Borg Queen is just a realization by the Borg that there is value in individualization and they are exploiting it by having the Queen? I mean, maybe. It's possible. I love your channel and I have a question. Which faction in Star Trek was most JU? Was most what? Was it ever stated the Borg were supposed to be from during or prior to First Contact? Was it ever stated where the Borg were supposed to be during or prior to First Contact? The Borg were probably in the Delta Quadrant. We know that they didn't become a superpower. They were regional. The Borg was a regional power for a long, long time. Jared Chadwick, if I go here and I get like I get a virus, I'm gonna be sad. You said not always right. Dot, not paragraph. And again, thank you so much for helping the channel. NotAlwaysRight.com. The Borg are on a Christmas diet. It's Christmas Eve and we are opening presents early. What am I about to look at? All right, so here we go. The Borg are on a Christmas diet. It's Christmas Eve and we open presents early because my grandmother doesn't want to wait. My cousin's 6-year-old daughter is trying on a helmet mask that her little brother got. It modifies the wearer's voice so that they sound like a robot. Hey, cousin's daughter, say you will be assimilated. Cousin's daughter, you will be my salad. Okay. Fair enough. Thanks so much for the support, buddy. I sincerely appreciate it. Death match, who wins? Picard/Q versus Cisco/Prophets. I'd say the Q. The Prophets are, while powerful, are regional. They don't appear to have the same abilities as the Q. And they also don't understand things like Q does. So I think the Q would win. Vidians, am I a joke to you? No. Oh, a taco. Yeah, no, we talked about it beforehand. You know how these things go, man. You guys get me off topic all the time. All the time. Thank you guys for supporting the channel, by the way. My point was that the original introduction of the Borg made them so scary. Yeah, no, Jose, I got where you're going, buddy. Jose, I love you. Okay? I'm going to say it right now. I love you. I have always loved you, and I really like where our relationship is going. You know, that's now... So, I don't drink. I can't because of an arthritis that I have. But if I get too tired, I get something called tired drunk, and I say stupid stuff, and I act as if I was drunk. I need to get off this. I need to stop being on here. You said Anti-Trekker said hi. He's not online. How does he say hi? How old do you think the Borg are? They don't know their exact history. As Seven stated, the collective's memory from 900 years ago are fragmented. We do know. Oh, hell. What was that? Subspace corridors. They use subspace corridors. Voyager, aliens, subspace corridors. Is it Dragon's Teeth? Yeah, it's Dragon's Teeth. The Vaudoir, I think, is what they were called. Gadron, were they Vaudoir? The Vaudoir say when they first started, before the Vaudoir went into hiding, I think it's the Vaudoir. It's from Dragon's Teeth. They talk about the Borg being a regional power. They only had one or two systems at most. And so, yeah, that goes along with what you were saying. It was 900 years ago. If they only had a couple of systems, they couldn't have been that old. Remember, humanity expanded like about 100 years or so. So I would say the Borg as we know them probably are about 1,000 years, maybe 1,100, because they wouldn't have been able to expand that much. And then pre-Borg Empire, that's anybody's guess. In Athres, $1 for each Zathras left, and for each season of Stargate you should watch. Well, you know, Zathras, I really enjoy Zathras, and Zathras. I don't like the other Zathras, and Zathras can be a really big jerk. That said, I get Stargate enough that I need to ask, but I have to get SDF Macross out first. Q makes a joke about Charles. I don't know what we're talking about. What if Q is the form of a woman and caused Picard to fall in love with her? Well, that would just make him a sick F, is what that would make him. Patrick M, why are you putting dots? What's going on? Don't you dot me. I'll dot you. Don't be jealous of my love for Jose. I think that's what it was. Zathras. That's how you say it. Zathras. Yep. I said the names individually. They all have different meanings. Thank you so much, Intereth. Thank you so much, Nate. You guys don't know how much that helps out the channel. Especially, man, the algorithm has been stupid. It's not just hitting me. It's hitting everybody. Eckhart, Space Doc, everybody's getting hit. And you add with that, with the summer months and everything, just, ugh. Zathras, yeah, all of the Zathrases are from Babylon 5, yeah. Vadwar, which means foolish in the old Talaxian tongue. Sure. Sorry for the topic change, but will you be as disappointed as me if John Delancey isn't on Picard at least once? I mean, we talk about whatever comes here, man. And thank you so much for the support. You know, if they don't have Q on there, I'll understand. It would be pretty hard to put Q because Q wouldn't age, right? What I think would be cool is for, instead of Data, because I've talked about this, instead of Data, they should have had Q. And they should have had Q having a card game with him and not try to age him. Let Q be as old as he looks with gray hair and everything. And have Picard ask him, he's like, why are you aging? You're a Q. And have Q say something like, well, I just wanted to look like you. I didn't want you to feel bad. Or something like that. If John Delancey, it'd be great to see Q in there if they did it right. I just don't know. Anti-Trekker wants us to show you his love whenever we see you. Okay, well, that's odd. Joe Mills, I'm guessing the Borg Queen is a software glitch that was exploited by an assimilated individual or species. That's a common theory. I'm not against a species tried to fight back, or it was like some kind of virus, because we know that species do that. Doesn't need to de-age. Q can appear as anything, and one so can appear as he is. Yes, Otaku, that's what I'm saying. He doesn't appear. That's why he appears old, though. So yeah, he can appear how he wants, of course, because he's a Q. But for the audience to buy it, you have to give them a reason. Audiences, you have to handhold audiences a lot more than they realize. I'm learning. Lord, do you think the new Picard series or Discovery Season 3 will mention current presidents like President Obama or Trump, like Toss mentioned JFK? I don't think they'll mention current presidents. I think that if they're going to do anything, they're going to completely and continue to divide our country like Discovery did and add to the problems that we have, both in this culture as well as in this nation. I think that they will continue to do stupid stuff and continue to push toxic liberal ideals that only further destroy what has been put together, is what I think they'll do if they continue on the path and do what Discovery did in season 2. Justin Ag will be right back. Looking at this as the age, we will have to have a new Trek every 25 to 30 years. What do we want it to look like? Reboots, follow-ups? Yeah, I mean, that's what we're seeing with Discovery and such. They're going to the younger and lowest denominator. Which faction was most likely to take over entirety of the 4 quadrants? Voyager, DS9. What faction? Which faction? Which faction? I don't understand what you're saying. Dominion had a good shot. I think Federation ultimately will. Will Picard have to smuggle a group of aliens into the Federation when the Admiral Drumpf builds a space wall? So, they did something similar to that in Discovery, and it only further divided the fan base. And it is, it's so stupid. And what's funny is when I get on this bandwagon or on this, this pedestal, people seem to think that I, for whatever reason, am ultra conservative or love Trump or whatever. And it's not that. What I think is, and I generally don't talk about what I believe. On Twitter, you can kind of guess, but here I don't. The problem is that they do it in a toxic way, a non-Trek way, that only further divides us. So when they talk about make the Empire great again, all they're doing is virtue signaling and pandering and doing exactly what got Trump in power. If you constantly attack people and call them stupid or Nazis or the reason X, Y, or Z happens, you're going to have a backlash that's going to be something you don't like. While Nostalgia Trek, while TNG, the original series, DS9, had their points when they did something stupid like that, generally, they did it in a way that was respectful to the person, even if it wasn't respectful to the idea. Because, and this is something that Hollywood writers, that people just forget, is that generally I sincerely believe that people want to do good or want to be good ultimately. They just may have bad ideas. And it's the idea that you have to attack, not the person. Nate Watson, you said this before. Thank you for supporting the channel. I'm so sorry if I didn't address it. I think the different kinds of drones are... And Nate's like, we are going to talk about Borg. I don't want to talk about this other stupid stuff. I think the different kinds of drones are like different kinds of cells in a mammal. Collectively, one being but specialized, the queen is just a rarer role. Side note, I want Yekaterina Petrovna Zamakolchikova to play the queen. Well, who the hell is that? Let's Google that name and see. I hope they don't have a queen. I think a queen is a bad idea. Are you... I am pretty sure you are trolling me right now. That's who you want to play the queen. Okay. But the problem is, Nate, and we can focus on this, and I really appreciate the super chats. Definitely, if you can, definitely do that. But we can have a conversation without you just super chatting too. Just put @Lore Reloaded, and I'll try to respond. That's not consistent with TNG. It's just not. They were one being. They didn't have organisms. As I said beforehand, though, it is possible that they continued to adapt or to assimilate, and they went that way, which is the explanation for what we see in Voyager. So Nate, you think they always had a queen? Well, I mean, they always did have a queen because it was retconned in the movie. See, that's the problem with the movies and Voyager, I guess, because she was retconned onto the Borg cube, wasn't she? Hmm. Of course, that could have been a specialized cube. We have no indication that that was the same cube they hit. I don't know. I'll have to think about that. I'm pretty tired right now, Nate. I'll have to think about that. But if they have specialized drones, then it would be very, very few and far between, I think. Justice Ag, I'm not sure. Read my comment, did you? What'd you say, Justice Ag? There's a good chance I did not. I'm pretty tired, good buddy. I want Katya Zama to play the queen for no other reason than I advocate that who cares we tone that relativity head. Okay. I mean, I don't know who this person is. Maybe she'd be an excellent choice for it. I want... So I want to ask this, and I don't want to be taken wrong, but is she, was she born a she? I mean, I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm just curious. We know their population has been in serious wars at least once, such as the conflict with 8472. Well, and we do know that when they were the Borg, when they were regional powers, they had some issues as well. The Borg had to really earn their stripes, and it's crazy because when you think about it, when the Borg first existed, they had every chance of destroying and defeating the being defeated. I'm sorry, and then they just grew too powerful. When Voyager showed 2350s era Borg, they should have looked like the TNG Borg. I agree. Unless they didn't have the money for it. I thought you actually have to do an at sign, not just spell at she for it to pop up. I thought Voyager destroyed the Borg in the in-game. We don't know that. Well, they definitively did not because the Borg are in Picard. But removing that, we don't have any evidence that they were we don't know one way or the other. We have evidence for both, that they were destroyed and that they survived. Katya is a gymnast drag queen. She's actually not even Russian. Oh, interesting. I honestly wouldn't care. If she can do the job, if she can act well, and it seems consistent with the Borg queens that we have, then I don't think that it's a huge deal. Justice Ag, the Borg should have been from the Gamma Quadrant. Why? I think that would have created some issues with the Dominion. You'd have to explain why the Dominion and the Borg aren't at each other's throats, why one isn't defeating the other. I mean, you can do it. I'd just be curious. Cybermen versus the Borg. The Borg. Cybermen don't have transporters. The Borg also have the ability to assimilate or deactivate cybernetic beings. Janeway dealt a huge blow to the Borg in Endgame, and then there might have had a few stragglers. Yeah, that's the best choice I'm guessing, is that There was a few that survived. Or Hugh's ones did. Hugh is showing up in the Picard series, for sure. That's been confirmed. We know there are stragglers that one sphere was still able to hear our thought. Exactly, Nate. That's what I'm saying. There's evidence for both. We see the destruction of Unimatrix Zero. And then there was Unimatrix 1. Unimatrix 0, I think. And then a Borg sphere was still working. Are the Borg a Cold War reference? The collective and regimentation of the Soviets? I think they were just a ticking time clock. Oh. A ticking time bomb is what I think they were. Just something to have that can't be defeated. If Voyager didn't finish them off, then what about Species 8472? Species 8472 was never defeated. And I honestly don't think that Species 8472 was evil. I think there's more evidence to show that they were freaking out because they didn't know what was going on and didn't necessarily want to destroy all of the universe. I don't think you have enough evidence to believe that. I know people like to do the one line, everything will burn or whatever the fuck they said, but when you actually watch it, it didn't actually go down that way. And we don't know who they were talking to. Because I say this all the time. I don't know why people think that just because one alien said it, it means the entire everyone believes it, right? So if we had aliens that came down and they decided to have a conversation with the head of the Ku Klux Klan, that's not really consistent with how most of humanity believes, right? How most of us all believe. We have no idea who Kes was talking to, who Kes was listening to. She had barely just gotten her powers. Yeah, your galaxy will be purged, but we don't know who they were talking to or why. I mean, was she talking to the leader? Was it a soldier? Was it basically the KKK member of 8472? In fact, a later episode where they are having a conversation with 8472. 8472 seems much more reasonable. Oh, here's a theory. What if Janeway sided with 8472 instead of the Borg? Patrick, I don't know if you've seen my Borg series. If you haven't, go to my playlist and watch my Borg series. I actually discuss how I think that Janeway probably should have sided with Species 8472 and why they were justified in attacking and firing on her ship. What's my favorite Voyager? Year of Hell. LOL, I didn't think it could have been... LOL, I didn't think it could have been a soldier just making a worker. Exactly. See, that's my point, Rodby. We don't know who Kes was talking to. It could have been the leader of all of Species 8472. Or it could have been a pissed off racist alien. We have no idea. And the only other thing too is when the only other time I believe Kes talks to him twice, and the second time was after they come up with a weapon that they are going to give to the Borg that are killing 8472 left and right. Voyager gives Species 8472 every justification under the world to destroy them. And 8472 arguably holds back and is arguably restrained against Voyager. Alexander Hagen helping out the channel, $14.99. Thank you so much. Zarkanda, I think the Borg making V'ger is a bit off. The V'ger ship was at least a Kardashev 2. The ship used more power than a star. Yeah, the tie-in with V'ger is interesting. There's never been anything confirmed. The tie-in to V'ger, there's two theories: that V'ger landed on the Borg planet and they fixed it and sent it off, or that V'ger actually were the Borg, created the Borg. The Borg at best strip mine planets, not even Kardashev 1. Drastically different levels of tech, so I have doubts. Yeah, I mean, I don't blame you for having doubts. It's reasonable. Good morning. Yeah, it's almost morning here. It's 15 minutes till 12:01 a for me. 12:01 a.m. Do you think you should change your name to Borg Reloaded? As much as I should change my name to Dominion to DS9 Reloaded, I have far more DS9 videos than I have. If you take all my DS9 videos, every other video not DS9 combined doesn't reach as many DS9 videos as I've had. I don't think Voyager should have sided with either of them. I mean, that's fair. So here's the interesting thing. You guys should really rewatch the interactions with the 8472 war. Really watch it, because Voyager, what happens? It starts off with Voyager showing up and there's a bunch of destroyed cubes. They begin looking around. They find Species 8472. They get back on their ship and they run like hell. Species 8472 hits Voyager and doesn't destroy it. It only takes like 5 of those ships to destroy an entire planet, and you're telling me a solid shot from Species 8472 ship doesn't destroy it, especially when those same ships can take out Borg cubes. So obviously that ship was not firing at full power. Obviously it was just trying to scare off Voyager. Then Voyager consistently and constantly is around the Borg, and you even see the Borg protecting Voyager. And then at the end, Voyager creates a weapon that they give to the Borg, or at least as far as 8472 is concerned, they give to the Borg to kill all of Species 8472. There is no reason. 8472 showed amazing restraint. Amazing restraint. Until their lives were threatened. And yeah, they're the Metamucil of the Alpha Quadrant. That is true. That's just facts. If it was that way, then there is a race out there that vastly outpowers the Borg of a ship they may have created the Borg. That's true. Yeah, I mean, that's fair, Justice Ag. They had plot armor, but you were trying to explain it in universe. And so in universe, that's the only way that it really makes sense, unless you want to say that they just got lucky. They were targeting Voyager because 8472 found out their plans through Cat. No, there's no evidence of that. There's no evidence of that, J.R. Chadwick. There is more evidence that proves that 8472 was just really pissed off at the Borg and really didn't have any guff with with Voyager or Starfleet. They just wanted to scare them off. And you know, even let's take what they said. So let's say that there are two superpowers that are brawling, right? And you have this one minor little power that keeps showing up. What do? Sometimes just scaring them off is a great idea. And that could have been why they did it, right? So like if my I don't know, if you have two kids play fighting and a dog comes up and starts snipping because it doesn't understand, then you scare it off to let the kids continue. Again, just the way the writing is, there's no way to prove definitively. And in fact, there is more evidence that 8472 had no interest in fighting Voyager than there is evidence that they did. Do you think the Cylons would side with the Borg if they met? I don't know. I just rewatched Scorpion today, and they said that's what happened. I just rewatched Scorpion today, and they specifically said who specifically said that's what happened? Who said that? Scorpion involved the Borg and Starfleet. So who said that? Because if it was the Borg or Starfleet that said that, that's not Species 8472. That's the interpretation of the Borg or Starfleet. The weak shall perish. Yeah, Norman Reed. Really easy question. Here we go. Who said it? In Species 8472, because we know they're autonomous, and we know that they work individually. Was it the leader that said it? Was it the priest that said it? Or was it the race? Here's a bonus question. Since we can't tell who Species 8472 said it, who in Species 8472 said it, if an alien species came down and talked to the head of the Ku Klux Klan, do you think they would get something consistent with what most of humanity said? We don't know who said it. We have evidence that 8472 was pulling its punches, so it doesn't make a lot of sense. Janeway and Kes said that. Kes, who had just gotten her powers, Janeway, who was trying to justify getting in the middle of a war and allying herself with the Federation's biggest enemy. That's who said it. That would be like asking Rommel his opinions on Hitler. I agree, Jose. Species 8472 greatly outclassed Voyager. Their ships greatly outclassed Voyager. Their ships could destroy entire cubes, and yet, when one of their ships fired on Voyager, didn't destroy it. Why would that be, unless you're pulling your punches? No, the Evil 8472 quote, not quotes. We only ever see one talk. Only ever. God, I am so Southern. Sorry, guys, I'm thirsty. Do you think the writers were being ambiguous about what Species 8472 for a reason? I don't. So let me say this. They were targeting Voyager. The cube had to take a hit for Voyager. No, Jared Chadwick. Rewatch the entire arc. When it first starts out, Voyager goes into a... see you later, Rodby. Voyager goes into a destroyed Borg... They go into the middle of debris of destroyed Borg cubes. The Species 8472 ship directly fires and directly hits Voyager in that. That wasn't the part where a cube took a hit for it. I think, now, when it comes to what the writers wanted to do, I think the writers fully intended Species 8472 to be evil. I think they fully intended Species 8472 to destroy the Alpha Quadrant. However, what the writers wanted to happen, what they intended to happen in their minds, and the evidence we see on screen are two different things. If you give a character dialogue that makes them sexist or racist or homophobic, and you say that they're not, on screen is what's going to be portrayed and taken. Nate Watson, the KKK contact scenario you describe, I think they'd figure out that most of humanity was vile beings, which lacked empathy and logic, and the assessment would be right. Okay. Fair enough, Nate. I stand corrected, buddy. We see plenty of 8472 talk in the flesh and start in the Starfleet Academy. I feel like that show exactly how they feel. It doesn't seem like they hate humans. They're just trying to deal with a problem. Exactly. And, and here's the problem. Because, again, that in the flesh completely contradicts what they were trying to do in the arc with the war. The problem is that when they wrote... Species 8472, they did make them a planet. They wanted to make them a species of hats. And I think they failed at that because we can sit here and have this argument on whether they were good or bad, right? And then they rewrote them in the flesh to make them seem more reasonable. So, again, the thing is when we're having this discussion, it's completely talking in universe. Because I do, if you want to take it out of universe and you want to say, well, what did the writers intend? I fully think the writers intended for 8472 to be evil and worse than the Borg. This is all just what does it show, right? Do you think the liquid dimension is space or inside a giant space-sized creature? I think it's space, I guess. It's just alternate space. Well, Charles, I've talked about this. Not only did the Borg initiate the war, but after the Borg initiated the war, all of a sudden you have Voyager poking around everywhere the Borg would be. And then the Borg are defending Voyager. So... And Norman Reed, I think that could, in theory, be reasonable. So they thought they were top dogs, and then when when someone came into their space, they thought they could just continue to be top dogs. All of a sudden, you have a species that can beat the hell out of them, and so they're more humbled. So I mean, that's possible. Voyager figured out a way to achieve depth since they failed at most things. Just attempt to make a species of hats, and they will fail, resulting in nuance. True. You know, and that's the thing. Say what you will. A lot of people get upset about, and I even think this of Discovery. I think you can have a lot of interesting and nuanced discussions, even with Discovery. And say what you will about the writing, but at least we can have those discussions and interactions. J.R. Chadwick hates me now. That's why he's not commenting. Honestly, imagine two superpowers fighting a war, and then some smaller power interferes. One ship from a smaller power to boot. Voyager would be like an annoying fly. Yeah, I mean, it would be... I don't know. I'm trying to come up with a really good analogy, but it's just hard. It'd be like if the U.S. and... if the U.S. and Russia decided to go at it, and then for whatever reason, I don't know, Egypt decided that they wanted to pick a fight. And, every time Egypt came around, it would just ping a U.S. destroyer or whatever. And finally, the United States says, hey, if you mess with us again, we're going to completely remove you from the map. We got bigger things to do, and we really need you to leave us alone. So you could leave us alone or you can die. And that could be possibly what they were trying to do. I'm not petty. I'm just playing a game while listening. I didn't say you were petty, man. Did I say you were petty? I didn't mean that. I was joking with you. God, I'm tired. It is now morning where I live. Have you ever thought about making an episode about the Voyager intersects into another universe where holograms are alive? I've never thought about making an episode on that. Oh, you mean on breaking that down? Someday I will. Yeah, I want to break down everything. I want my channel to be. I want it to be more than just this, but I would love for it to be like a great place just to dive into everything Trek and explore everything that there can be to explore. Chad, I am about to go to sleep, man. But I stayed up till midnight for you, Chad, so that you could catch one. Your U.S., Russia, Egypt analogy was spot on, says Jose. Well, I mean, I just pulled three random. But yeah, I mean, that's honestly what it looks like to me. So when you look at the war between 8472 and the Borg, and then Voyager randomly coming in, it honestly did look like where you had two superpowers just busting it out, and then a small minor power that randomly comes up and just continues to be an annoyance. And the superpowers say, we're going to completely destroy your civilization if you don't leave us alone. And I think that threat could have been that. That's why they said everything will purge, everything will be destroyed, so they'd run. Have you ever been on the Trek BBS? I didn't know that Trek BBS still existed. Star Trek is an awesome franchise with a lot of wasted potential. What's your worst example of lost potential, especially for plot? I think Voyager's Maquis Starfleet would be a lot of wasted potential. What Discovery did with the Mirror Universe and trying to tie it to real world events, I think you had a lot of wasted potential because I think you could have done that and done it well. Did Garrett commit war crimes? Yes, he committed a lot of war crimes. One we're completely aware of, others most likely. Garrick didn't do nothing. I'm sorry for being quiet over in the gelato machine corner. Still trying to wrap my mind around that duplicate Voyager thing. Yeah, that was kind of crazy. Star Trek the Motion Picture was wasted potential. It could have been glorious. A lot of people give Star Trek the Motion Picture a lot of guff, but any movie that you can get up from, go change your oil and come back to, and nothing has happened, is a great movie in my book. Ducat, I'll hate forever for killing Dax. Yeah, Ducat, I hate when they made Ducat go insane. He was a really good character. Voyager was the Maquis between the Borg's Dominion and 8472's Alpha Quadrant. Voyager was the Maquis. Oh, I mean, yeah, I guess you could put it that way. No, the Maquis were actually a lot more effective. I couldn't even do that. Tricking the Romulans to enter the Dominion War was a war crime. Yeah, it was. All right, guys. I'm so tired. I think we're going to end it. Thank you so much. I may try to do these later at night. I don't know how many I can do. This is real late for me. I'm going to be paying for it tomorrow. You know, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you on the next Lore Reloaded.